I am Dr. Lori Esposito Murray, co-chair of the 2024 Distinguished Leadership Awards and former president of the Committee for Economic Development, the Public Policy Center of the Conference Board. In today's conversation, we will discuss leadership in challenging times, where we feature the outstanding CEOs who are recipients of the CED Distinguished Leadership Awards for Corporate Citizenship and Business Stewardship. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with our 2024 honoree, Julie Sweet, CEO and chair of Accenture, a leading global professional services company with a workforce of 710,000 people worldwide. Accenture's mission is to help the world's leading businesses, governments, and other organizations build their digital core, optimize their operations, accelerate revenue growth, and enhance citizen services. Under Julie's leadership, Accenture is committed to creating positive change around the world and ensuring they act as responsible business leaders in this challenging era of rapid technological change. And just how they do that is what we're going to be discussing today. Julie, welcome. We are so pleased to have you joining us.
Great. Thank you so much, Lori. It's really great to be here.
So, Julie, I'd like to start the conversation focused on leadership values. You became CEO of Accenture in September of 2019. That was the calm before the storm. It was right before we were thrusted into this whirlwind of change, challenge, and opportunity. And so what are the core values, principles that you would identify as key to your leadership?
Lori, you made a really good point when you talk about, it was a calm before the storm. And yet at the same time, what we relied on were the values that we've had for literally decades. And, I would recognize the CED for being an organization that has fostered businesses having values and living out those values. And I think it's just really a great service that the CED does to recognize and to, really underscore the importance of them. At Accenture, the first thing that we did when the pandemic hit was, in fact, to rely on what is our purpose, right? And how are we going to act during this time? And we start with, our purpose is to deliver on the power of technology, on the promise of technology and human ingenuity. And so as we look around, the first thing that we needed to do was to focus on the concept of delivering, right? So our values are about actually delivering results. And there was no room to say, well, because there's a pandemic, we were not going to show up for our clients. But our focus is on our clients, our people, our communities, and our partners. And so we did a 360 in terms of this is our purpose. These are our values. How are we going to show up and deliver for each of our stakeholders? And I think that's important because we've all experienced many challenging times since the pandemic. I remember as a new CEO, I thought, well, this will be my thing, right? Like every CEO I'd ever talked to always had one big thing during their tenure. We've had quite a few since then, but we've always approached it in the same way. What's our purpose? Look at all of our stakeholders and create a plan consistent with that purpose and those values.
That's really interesting, the importance of evergreen values in terms of navigating the path ahead. And needless to say, the rapid technological change that you are right in the bullseye of dealing with is so key to steady values to help achieve your mission, which is reinvention of enterprises, of businesses. And you've called for the total enterprise reinvention. So I'd like to do a deeper dive on that. Can you share with us the scope of change that you see AI having on business and society at large? And I know that's a very, very big question, but I also know you're very strategic. So I would love to hear how you view that.
So Lori, maybe the best way is to articulate what's different with Gen AI. So that's what everyone's talking about. I cannot go to a single conference or client meeting without it coming up. And I'll tell you what is fundamentally different with the coming of Gen AI versus every technology trend in, say, the last 30 years. With Gen AI, I can stand in front of a board a CEO, an entire C-suite. And in every industry, for every company, I can put up a slide that has, with real numbers, the ability of like what productivity and what growth can be driven by using Gen AI in literally every aspect of the enterprise. And so it's not in one aspect. It's literally put up a slide that shows the whole value chain as reflected in the company. So from enterprise functions to their products to the way they operate and create those products, whatever they may be. And I can show tangible value, and no one says to me, I don't believe it. They have questions about when will it be real? How do I actually do it? But I've now done this for the last, 18 months across every industry. And that is very profound. So think of AI as being the new digital. Remember a decade ago when digital came, and in fact, Accenture was the first to say every business would be a digital business. It's taken us about a decade to realize that every part of the enterprise was going to be operating differently because of digital technologies. AI is the new digital. That's the best way to think about the profound changes that are coming, because if every part of the enterprise will now be changed due to AI, that level of change is really different.
And how are you helping companies, business leaders deal with the risks involved as well as the opportunities?
Well, we're spending, as part of our investment in AI, $1 billion a year. And part of that investment is going toward the development of responsible AI, meaning not just a bunch of buzzwords and slides, but actually platforms that you can use to make sure that you're using the best technology to monitor the AI. Because oftentimes what a lot of companies don't recognize is that when you implement an AI solution, over time, the solution that you implemented up front can change. And if you don't have the right monitoring, you may not catch those changes. In addition, most organizations still, when I ask them, do you know where AI is being used? Cannot answer that question definitively. It's a lot better than it was 12 months ago. We have a long, long way to go. And so we're using our own investment to create those platforms, but we started with ourselves. So I have a responsible AI compliance program that we put in place before Gen AI, so long ago, a couple of years ago, that's overseen by our audit committee in the same way our compliance programs for corruption or data privacy or export controls. That's the level that most companies, really all companies, need to be at. And we're using our own experience at scale, 710,000 people. So we take our learnings from that compliance program. We're investing to create things so that make it easier and more cost effective for our clients. And then we're using all of our industry expertise so that we can help clients avoid the mistakes by taking the experience of responsible AI, tailoring it to the industry and then to the company.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about responsible AI, but I first want to turn to talent and investing in training talent. And as you're mentioning in terms of responsible AI, Accenture, you're using your own experience and data to help other enterprises achieve the same thing. And in talent, you have prioritized talent development. What are you recommending that business leaders do based on your experience? And share with us what you are doing at Accenture and then how that relates to other enterprises and how they should approach this.
Well, Lori, if enterprise leaders watching this take away only one thing, I would say that success in the next decade requires two fundamental strategies. The first you already mentioned, which is the reinvention of the enterprise using tech, data, and AI, new ways of working, new ways of engaging. So we talked about that. The second is talent and having the right strategy for talent, which is about having the best access to talent, becoming a talent creator. So not just relying on the marketplace, but actually being able to upskill your own people. And then finally, being able to unlock that talent by having the right potential. So at Accenture, for example, during the pandemic, the tightest labor market in history, we grew in a little over 2 years from 500,000 people to over 700,000 people, all of whom we were hiring had really hot skills. How are we able to do that? We were able to do that because for the last decade, we have worked on developing broad talent pipelines, from accessing diverse populations so that we get the very best talent to looking at talent pathways like apprenticeships. And so we had built over a decade an incredible access to talent that allowed us to win in the talent race when others were struggling. The same is true with becoming a talent creator. We spend over $1 billion a year training our people. So if you look at last year, we had trained 230,000 of our technology people with at least 16 hours of training around Gen AI so that we could be rapidly pivoting our skills, because Gen AI has you do things very differently. We actually had 500,000 of our people finish the basic course on Gen AI, a 3-hour course, to start upskilling. That is about having the ability, the knowledge, the partnerships, and the commitment to invest to make our people be, to create new talent. And that's what it means to be a talent creator. And then we focus in unlocking talent on having a strategy which we call to be net better off. Like, anybody joining Accenture should view themselves as being net better off because they're working here. And we have a very clear strategy behind how we make people feel and actually deliver on them being net better off. And that very simple framework, access, talent creation, and unlocking the potential of talent, is something that we're helping hundreds of companies and enterprises around the world, because it is so critical to actually be able to succeed in the next decade.
And these are values that have been extremely important, and recommendations that have been extremely important to CED, as you know, over the past several years, particularly as the labor market shortages are having an important impact on the economy. And we really do recognize and appreciate everything that Accenture has done in this area: internships, apprenticeships, developing your own talent, and not afraid to be developing your own talent in terms of losing them. You've been a real leader on this issue, and it's very much valued in terms of CED. So thank you. And
Thank you.
So getting back to responsible AI, one of the areas that, as you know, CED, its core mission is how business leaders can coordinate and collaborate with policymakers to help solve, in the nation's interest, these really critical challenges facing us. And so in terms of responsible AI, how important do you see the public-private collaboration on these issues and shaping the guardrails?
Well, this is a place that I've been passionate for a long time. In fact, when I was on the board of the Business Roundtable and leading our technology committee, the two things that I did that I'm probably most proud of is that a few years ago, I led our work to talk about why we needed more regulation around data privacy. And so it was one of the first times that anyone could remember the Business Roundtable actually proposing regulation, because we really believe that we should have a national regulation. And then 2 years later, actually just before Gen AI came out, I also led the work around responsible AI, where we proposed both what companies should be doing. So what does the C-suite need to do? And we put out a roadmap for regulators to think about how they should do. And I think that work, where you're bringing the expertise and the experience of the private sector together with the public sector, is absolutely critical. And it will be even more critical in the future, because these technologies, we've always talked about technology changing, but I will tell you that we've never seen anything like this in Gen AI. And the rate of change. And it will be impossible for any regulator to keep up on their own. We really have to come together. And proper and appropriate regulation is as important to companies as it is to the regulator, right? We have the same interest of creating safe and healthy communities, having regulation that provides the right playing field, the right guidelines, so that we can all really reap the benefits of Gen AI and manage through the risks. And so I'm very much encouraged by actions such as the NIST coordination committee that we've joined around AI, which is bringing together companies. And we've done this around the world, in fact, to make sure that we're contributing as a company to this public-private partnership concept.
And when you are a global company, you're obviously dealing with the regulations of each individual country. And there are about 60 countries now that have regulated AI, with, of course, the EU leading in terms of a more comprehensive approach. And so it's all very critical. One area that I would really like to hear your insights on is AI's challenge to sustainability and the energy demands. How are you looking at that issue? What do you think is required in terms of making sure that we get the benefits of AI, but it's done sustainably?
I'm a real optimist here for a couple of reasons. First of all, the challenge is front and center, right? This isn't going to be something that we wake up in 5 years and we didn't know that it was coming. And there's a business reason for solving the challenge because AI has so much power for good, whether it's productivity, it's creating new drugs and new products, that everyone has an interest in solving this. So everyone knows about the challenge. There's aligned interest in solving it because it's not just the impact on sustainability, but if you don't solve it, you actually won't have the energy to realize the benefits. So I think those two things, common interests and awareness, are really important. The other thing that I get to see up close is that a lot of the technology breakthroughs that are needed, for example, to make AI less and Gen AI less expensive, also benefit by having it be less energy intensive. And so again, there's common interests that are taking us forward. This isn't like, well, we need to go create a brand new technology that the only purpose is sustainability. So think about something like carbon sequestration, which has taken a lot of money and it's got the benefit of doing it, but it doesn't have the same other benefits, right? And so here you have, again, common interests in Gen AI can't take off unless it becomes less expensive to use. It will then become less energy efficient. The other piece is that the technology breakthroughs, we think, will allow us to tap into energy. So, for example, you might be able to take a place like the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, and do some of the energy intensive things that we need to do, like training the models in a country that has a lot of sun, right? That can, really tap into renewables. And we're seeing that there's a big focus that long term, we're going to be able to tap into energy resources around the globe. So I believe that this really will be solved. There's a common interest, there's an awareness, and there's real investment going into the technology that's necessary to solve it.
That's really interesting. And utilizing, as we did with Iceland, in terms of data processing centers, taking advantage of the environment in order to help make these advances affordable and sustainable. So, Julie, I'd like to turn to the importance of giving back. And you are one of the foremost business leaders who embraces the tenet that profit and purpose are not in contention, but go hand in hand. And really want to compliment you for that. But can you share with us how you ensure a culture within Accenture that is committed to giving back and how you set your priorities in terms of your own time as to what you focus on and what Accenture focuses on?
Well, thanks, Lori. Well, let's start with the fact that our business strategy requires that we have healthy communities, thriving communities, and that we're able to access a broad array of talent. That's our business strategy. We're a people business. I went back to everybody really has to be able to access talent, but we're also a business that doesn't thrive unless companies can afford to invest, to buy our services, right? And we have to be able to have talent that can live near the companies. And so they have to have things like affordable housing, right? And so we start with our business strategy requires healthy, thriving communities and access to a lot of different people in order to fulfill our demand for skills. And that means that when it's a business strategy, it's not simply like an altruistic, like it's a nice to have. We do believe it's important to do it because we want to do it in our communities, but it's absolutely critical to our business strategy. That means that we treat the investment in our communities as a business priority. We have people who are in charge of it. We look at what are we investing in and how does it fit the nexus of our business strategy. So for example, a lot of our corporate citizenship uses our expertise in learning to do digital skilling. And then the people that we are actually training become potentially people that we can hire and that our clients can hire. Because if our clients can't access talent, then they're not, they never can have us do 100% of it. So there's a real virtuous circle. And so as a company, we start with what are our areas of expertise? What are the areas that we can actually contribute? And how do those impact and intersect with our business strategy? Because if it doesn't, then it's hard to sustain, right? Because it's things that can't happen. And I think that very thoughtful analysis is really important. Another thing that we're doing, which builds client relationships, is we're more and more partnering with our clients where we can bring our expertise with their expertise, and where we operate in the same communities, they also have the same need for thriving communities. So making sure that it's clear as to how it ties to your business strategy, what your own competencies are, and how you can then treat it as a business priority so it's sustained, I think are really critical. And then for us, because we do give back and we really prioritize it in all of our investments, our people have an opportunity to participate. It is a huge draw for the best talent. And we only succeed if we have the best talent. And our people want to work here because they know that they will get an opportunity to give back and that they'll get to participate. They aren't just going to read about us writing a check. And so every time that we work with an organization, we say we need to, we do things that allow our people to participate, because it's a massive advantage in recruiting. If you go back to why is it that in the toughest times we can recruit great talent, you have to be able, you can tie it directly to the fact that we have as a value, in addition to the business strategy, we have as a value giving back to our communities.
And how important that is to have a 360 approach as far as the perspective is concerned. And now looking back into Accenture and culture, your commitment to inclusion and diversity, what are the components of that? How do you implement that strategy within Accenture? How do you build that culture? How do you develop that sense of inclusion that then helps to make Accenture the company that it is and be able to provide the services that it provides?
Well, Lori, I always go back to basics. So first of all, our purpose is to deliver on the promise of technology and human ingenuity. And so our focus on the promise of human ingenuity means that we have to be able to unlock the potential of our people. That's our purpose. Then I go to our business strategy that says it's access, becoming a talent creator, and then actually when you have the talent, right, unlocking that potential to deliver on what you think you've hired, right? And that strategy around being net better off, which is our strategy that says the way you unlock talent is that people feel that they're net better off. It has 4 components. One of those components is that people feel like they belong and can really be themselves and do their best work. And that is where inclusion becomes so important. And it's very much tied to our purpose as a company, as well as our business strategy of being able to not only hire the best talent, but actually enable them to, to deliver on that talent with our clients. And so again, it's super important that these things are all grounded in purpose, in strategy, and in what outcome are you trying to deliver. Then you sort of take a step back and you go, how do you get the best talent? Why does it matter? Why is that a part of our strategy? And that's where you just remind yourself that we're all humans, right? And so you think about, when are you happiest? I used to say, I used to have clients say, like, I really want to work with a consultant like you guys as somebody I want to have a beer with. Now, I actually don't drink, so they have to have iced tea with me. But the point is that, sometimes you have to get away from the terms, inclusion, diversity, and all these things, and go back to basics. If you want to attract the best people You want to have them do their best work. They need to feel like they're at a place where people like each other, they want to be together, and that's where you need this environment. So I sometimes think people get away from the practical lessons that we all know, which is when you know each other, when you learn about each other, when you relate as humans, you're just happier, and happier people do a better job.
Julie, very much appreciate you sharing your insights today. The key takeaway is the importance of core values, dealing with such rapid change and such disruptive change, both internally within Accenture and what you're doing in the communities that you operate in. It is truly our privilege to be honoring you and the Accenture team this year for the Distinguished Leadership Awards. We're looking forward to seeing you in October, and thank you so much for today's discussion.
Thank you so much. And again, I really appreciate this honor and recognizing Accenture and myself. And this is really a recognition of Accenture, which I think is just an amazing company of great people. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.